Have you ever, looked at a big company's finances and just wondered, how on earth do they really know the true cost of making just one thing? Especially when you've got all these departments like, say, IT or HR that don't actually touch the product. It kind of feels like some sort of accounting magic trick.
It definitely can seem that way, yeah. And, well, that's pretty much the magic we were going to pull back the curtain on today.
Okay, good. So our mission in this deep dive is to unravel this pretty crucial accounting concept.
Yeah.
The reapportionment of service center costs.
Right.
We're basically going to explore how these indirect costs get properly allocated to production, making sure every single product carries an appropriate share of the company's total overheads.
Yeah, think of it like ensuring every dollar spent finds its way to the right place, even if it took a bit of a detour through, say, the maintenance department first.
That appropriate share, you mentioned that it sounds absolutely key.
Oh, it is. In absorption costing, that's the core idea, really. Each cost unit could be a product, could be a service. It needs to be charged not just with its direct costs, materials, labor.
Obvious stuff.
Exactly. But also a slice of the total overheads. And that slice, that share, it really should reflect the time and effort that went into making that specific unit. If you don't do that, well, you're kind of flying blind on whether you're actually making money on it.
Right, flying blind. So how do you get that clarity then when you have whole departments like, I don't know, the team keeping the machines running or the HR folks hiring the engineers?
Yeah.
Their work obviously supports production.
Sure.
But they aren't physically building the widget.
Precisely.
So we're going to dive into the different ways businesses handle this, how they reapportion these costs.
That's the plan.
Right.
We'll look at the various methods they use, starting with the most straightforward and working our way up to the more complex ones. And we'll use some real-world type examples to hopefully make it all click.
Great. So maybe let's start right at the beginning. What exactly is a service cost center?
Yeah.
And why are they so important in this whole process?
Okay, yeah. Simply put, service cost centers are departments that exist to provide support and services to other cost centers within the company. They're not directly making the final product. So think about your IT support team, HR, maybe the internal legal team, even the company canteen sometimes.
Right, the background support.
Exactly. They're essential gears in the whole machine, really, making sure everything else runs smoothly.
So if they're not actually making the product, but they definitely cost money,
yeah.
How do we correctly pin their expenses onto what the company actually sells? It sounds like a really tough nut to crack. What happens if we just don't or get it wrong?
Well, that's the absolute core challenge here. Because they don't work directly on production, their costs have to be reapportioned, or you could say shared out among the production cost centers. And this step, it's crucial because it allows those overheads, those indirect costs, to ultimately be absorbed into the final product's unit cost.
Absorbed, right.
Yeah. If you skip this or do it badly, your product costs are just incomplete. Imagine trying to price something without including all those hidden support costs that went into making it possible.
You could be selling at a loss and not even realize it.
Exactly. Or you might think one product is way more profitable than another just because you haven't allocated costs properly. It really skews your picture.
And for you, the listener, understanding this, it goes way beyond just theory for accountants.
No, absolutely. This process is vital, first off, for accurate pricing decisions. I mean, if you don't truly know the full cost, how can you set a price that guarantees a profit?
Good point.
It also impacts understanding your true profitability, product by product. It helps you see which ones are genuinely your stars, And ultimately, all of this lets you make much more informed strategic choices. Where should we invest? Where could we maybe cut costs? How do we allocate our resources effectively across the whole operation? It's all about getting the clearest possible financial picture.
Okay, makes sense. Let's dive into the how then. Let's start with the first method, which you said is the simplest one, the direct method.
Right, the direct method. This is a great starting point, and it's really ideal for situations where your service cost centers only provide services directly to the production cost centers.
Okay.
And crucially, not to each other. So there's no internal back and forth between the service departments themselves.
Ah, I see. So each service department's costs just flow straight to production, like separate pipes.
Exactly like separate pipes. It's quite straightforward. The overheads from each service cost center are simply shared out or allocated directly to the production cost centers. And you base this sharing on some relevant measure, maybe percentage of service used, or machine hours supported, or even the number of employees in each production department.
Okay, let's make that concrete. Walk us through an example.
Sure. Let's imagine a company, right? It's got 5 cost centers total. 2 are production centers. Let's call them production A with $80,000 in initial overheads and production B with $100,000.
Okay, A with $80K, B with $100K.
Then you have 3 service cost centers. Service C with $10,000, service D with $20,000, and service E with $4,000.
Got it. C10K, D20K, E4K. So adding all that up, 80K plus 100K plus $10 plus 20K plus 4K, that's $214,000 total overhead going in, right?
Perfect. $214,000 total. Now, the key for the direct method is how their services are used. Let's say service C's services are used 40% by production A and 60% by production B.
Okay, 40-60 split for C.
Service D, 75% used by production A, 25% by production B.
70-35 for D. And finally, service E, 30% by production A, 70% by production B.
30-70 for you. And critically, no mention of C serving D or D serving E or anything like that.
Exactly. In this direct method scenario, there's no inter-service center activity. It all goes straight to A and B. Okay, so how do we actually split the money then?
Yeah.
Let's take service C's $10,000 first. How does that get distributed based on that 40-60 split?
Right. So 40% of $10,000 is $4,000. That goes to production A. 60% of $10,000 is $6,000, which goes to production B.
Simple enough. Service C's cost is now dealt with. What about D's $20,000?
Same logic. 75% of $20,000 is $15,000 that goes to A. 25% of $20,000 is $5,000 that goes to B.
Okay, D is done. And E is $4,000.
30% of $4,000 is $1,200 for A. 70% of $4,000 is $2,800 for B.
All right. So now all the service costs are moved over. What's the final overhead tally for production A and B?
Okay, so production A started with $80,000. It got $4,000 from C, $15,000, and $1,200 from E. Add those up. $80,000 plus $4,000 plus $15,000 plus $1,200, $113,800.
$100,200 for A and B.
Production B started with $100,000. It got $6,000 from D and $2,800 plus $5,000 plus $213,800.
$113,800 for B.
Got it. And here's a quick sort of sanity check you should always do. Remember, the total overhead go-in was $214,000?
Yeah.
Well, what's the total overhead now sitting in A and B? $100,000, $200,000 plus $113,800.
It is $214,000. It matches. Okay, that's a neat check.
It is. It confirms your basic arithmetic, at least. Now, while this direct method is simple, you can see its limitation, right? If service departments do actually help each other out, this method just ignores that. It's like only counting direct flights and pretending layovers don't exist.
That's a good analogy. So what happens when those layovers do exist, when things get a bit more interconnected? That takes us to method 2, right? The step-down method. You mentioned hierarchy.
Exactly. The step-down method, or sometimes called the sequential method. This approach comes into play when some service cost centers do provide services to other service cost centers. But, and this is the key difference from the next method we'll discuss, these services are not reciprocated. It's like a one-way street. Department C might help D and D might help E, but E doesn't help D back and D doesn't help C back. Ah, okay. A one-way flow of support. So the crucial thing here isn't just who they serve, but the order you do the allocation in. That hierarchy sounds really important.
It's everything. The critical rule here is establishing the right order for reapportionment. Generally, you start with the service cost center that provides services to the most other service cost centers. You allocate its costs first.
Okay, the biggest sharer goes first.
Right. Then you step down to the one that provides the next most services to other service centers, allocate its costs, and so on. And here's a really important point. Once a service center's costs have been fully apportioned out, it's considered closed. It doesn't receive any costs back from other service centers later in the sequence.
Okay, once its costs are gone, they're gone for good. It can't get costs allocated back to it later in the process.
Precisely.
Oh.
Let's use our same company setup again to see how this works. Production A still starts with $80,000, B with $100,000, service C $10,000, D $20,000, and E $4,000. Total $214,000.
Same starting point. But now the usage pattern has to be different to show this one-way service.
Right.
Exactly. Let's change the usage. Service C's services are now used by production A, 40%, production B, 50%, and here's the change also by service D, 8%, and service E, 2%.
Okay, so C helps out D and E. What about D?
Service D serves production A, 75%, production B, 20%, and also service E, 5%.
Right, so D helps E and E.
And service E only serves production A, 30%, and production B, 70%. It doesn't serve C or D.
Okay, let me trace that. C serves D and E, 2 other service centers. D serves E, 1 other service center. E serves none. So following that rule about serving the most others first, The order must be C first, then D, then E. Does that sound right?
That's absolutely correct. C, then D, then E. That's our step-down order.
Perfect. So let's follow the money. Step 1, service C, $10,000. How does that split?
Okay, using its percentages. Production A gets 40% of $4,000. Production B gets 50%, $5,000. Service D gets 8%, $800. And service E gets 2%, $200.
Right. 4,000 plus 5,000 plus 200 plus 200 plus 200 is 10,000. Perfect. Service C's balance is now 0. It's closed.
Closed. Now, step 2, service D. What's its starting balance for this step? It's not just its original $20,000, is it?
Good point. It received $800 from C in the first step. So its total cost to be allocated now is $20,000 plus $800 plus $20,800. Its cost went up because it used C's services.
Exactly right. So we now distribute that full $20,800 based on D's usage percentages. A, 75%, B, 20%, E, 5%.
75% of $20,800 of C is $15,600. That goes to A.
Correct.
20% of $20,800 is $4,160. It goes to B. And 5% of $20,800 is $1,800.
All right.
Final step. Service E. What's its starting point?
Right.
Original $4,000. Plus it got $200 from C back in step 1, and it just got $1,040 from D in step 2.
Precisely. So E's total cost to allocate is $4,000 plus $200 plus $1,040 plus $5,240. You can really see how costs accumulate as they flow down the steps.
You can't. Okay, so this $5,240 is allocated based on E's usage, A 30% and B 70%.
Right. So 30% of $5,240 is $1,572 for production A.
Okay.
And 70% of $5,240 is $3,668 for production B.
Got it. 172 plus 668 equals 1,540. So E is now 0. All service centers are closed. All costs are in production.
That's it. All done.
So what are the final totals for A and B now? Production A started with $80,000. It got $4,000 from C, $15,600 from D, and $15,562 from E. That totals $101,172.
Correct.
And production B started with $100,000. It got $5,000 from C, $4,160 from D, and $3,668 from E. That totals $112,828.
Exactly. And let's do our check. $101,172 plus $112,828.
Equals $214,000 again. Perfect.
Sure.
The distribution is different from the direct method, though.
It is, because the step-down method captures more of that internal support chain, that one-way flow of services between departments. It's generally considered more accurate than the direct method when those dependencies exist.
Okay, that makes sense. Direct method ignores inter-service stuff. Step-down handles the one-way street. But what if it's not a one-way street? What if service departments are genuinely helping each other out back and forth?
Yeah.
That sounds like the most complex scenario.
It is. And that brings us to method 3, the reciprocal method. This is for when services are truly two-way.
Reciprocal, meaning they provide services back to each other.
Exactly. It's the most intricate situation because you have this circular relationship. Service cost center C might provide services to D, and D in turn provides services back to C. Think maybe the IT department needs HR services for staffing, but HR needs IT support for their systems. It's a complete two-way street.
Right, a feedback loop.
Yeah.
I can imagine some companies might just ignore that for simplicity's sake. Maybe just use step down anyway. What's the risk if you don't properly account for that reciprocal relationship if it's really happening?
That's a really good point. And yes, an organization might choose to ignore the reciprocal services just to keep things simpler.
Yeah.
They might default to the direct or step-down method. But doing that can lead to an inaccurate picture of the true cost of running those service departments. And that inaccuracy then flows into the costs of the products they support.
How so?
Well, imagine you understate the true cost of, say, the IT department because you're not fully factoring in the cost of the services it receives from HR. Then any production department that uses a lot of IT support might look cheaper than it really is. That could mess up your pricing or maybe lead you to invest more in that area based on faulty cost information.
I see. It hides the true cost dependencies.
Precisely. So if the goal is really to fully reflect the reciprocal services involved, then you have to use a method designed for it. And there are two main ways to do that under the reciprocal umbrella: the repeated distribution approach or the algebraic approach.
Okay, two sub-methods for the reciprocal situation. Let's stick with our company example. A, $80 K, B, $100 K, C, $10K K, D, $20K E, total $214K. But now the usage pattern needs to show that C helps D and D helps C back.
Correct. Let's set it up like this. Service C serves production A, 40%, production B, 50%, and service D, 10%.
Okay, C serves D.
Service D serves production A, 75%, production B, 20%, and crucially, service C, 5%.
Ah, there it is. C serves D, 10%, and D serves C, 5%. That's the reciprocal link. What about E?
Let's keep E simple for now. Service E still only serves production A, 30%, and production B, 70%. It's not involved in the reciprocal relationship between C and D, so we can actually handle it a bit separately first.
Okay, that simplifies things slightly. So let's tackle the first reciprocal submethod, repeated distribution. The name suggests you just keep going round and round.
That's basically the idea. It sounds a bit tedious, but the concept is you distribute the costs iteratively back and forth between the reciprocal service centers, C and D in our case. You keep doing passes until the amounts being tossed back and forth become so small they're basically insignificant or negligible.
Like ripples fading in a pond.
Exactly like that. It helps visualize that continuous flow. So first step, as you noted, let's get E out of the way since it's not reciprocal. E's $4,000 goes 30% to A, $1,200, and 70% to B, $2,800. E is now done.
Okay, E is handled. Now the back and forth between C and D begins. Where do we start?
Let's start with C's first pass. Take its original $10,000. It goes 40% to A, $4,000, 50% to B, $5,000, and 10% to D, $1,000.
Okay, C's original cost is distributed. D just got $1,000 from C.
Right, now we do D's first pass. What's D's total cost now? It's the original $20,000 plus the $1,000 it just received from C, so $21,000.
Right. We distribute the $21,000. Okay. D serves A, 75%, B, 20%, and C, 5%. So 75% of 21K is $15,750 to A.
Yep.
20% of 21K is $4,200 to B.
Correct.
And 5% of 21K is $1,050. That goes back to
see the loop. C helped D, now D helps C back.
I do. So now C has costs again. It has that $1,050 it just got from D. So we do another pass for C.
We do. Service C, second pass. We distribute just that $1,050 based on C's percentages. A, 40%, B, 50%, D, 10%.
Okay, 40% of $1,050 is $420 to A, 50% is $525 to B, and 10% is 105%. Back to D again.
Back to D it goes. And it has 105 pass. So we do D's second pass, distributing the $105 based on D's percentages. A, 75%, B, 20%, C, 5%.
Okay, 75% of $105 is about $78.
Yeah.
$75, then $105, now just $5.
Yeah, they're shrinking fast. You typically continue this process, maybe one or two more rounds, until the amount being passed back is considered immaterial, effectively zero. For our example, let's say we stop here for illustration.
Okay, so after all those passes, adding up everything A and B receive, what are the final totals? The source material example comes out to approximately $101,453 for production A and $112,547 for production B after these iterations.
That sounds about right based on the example. And again, $101,453 plus $112,547.
$214,000. Still balances. Phew. That repeated distribution seems intuitive, but maybe a bit iterative, like lots of steps.
It can be, especially if the amounts decrease slowly or if you have many reciprocal departments. Which brings us to the second submethod, the algebraic approach.
Algebra. This sounds like it might involve some math class flashbacks, but maybe it's quicker, more direct.
It usually is, yes, especially with computers now. This approach uses simultaneous equations, remember those from school, to calculate the true, fully adjusted costs of the reciprocal service centers all in one go. It precisely factors in their mutual dependency from the start.
Okay, simultaneous equations. How do we set those up for our C and D example?
Right. We define an equation for the total cost of each reciprocal center. The total cost equals its original cost plus any costs it receives from other reciprocal centers.
So for C, its total cost, let's just call it C, would be its original $10,000 plus it receives 5% of D's total cost. Let's call that D. So C equals 10,000 plus 0.05 D.
Perfect. That's the equation for C. Now,
D's total cost, D, would be its original $20,000 plus it receives 10% of C's total cost.
D.
So D equals 20,000 plus 0.10 C.
Exactly. And we still have E, which is simple. E equals 4,000 as it's not reciprocal.
So we have two equations with two unknowns, C and D, that depend on each other. C equals 10,000 plus 0.05 D, and D equals 20,000 plus 0.10 C. We need to solve these together.
We do. We can use substitution or elimination. Let's try substitution like in the source example. We can substitute the second equation for D into the first equation for C.
Okay, so replace the D in the first equation with 20,000 plus 0.10 C.
Right. So C equals 10,000 plus 0.05, 20,000 plus 0.10 C.
Now we just have an equation with C. Let's simplify that. C was 10,000 plus 0.05, 20,000, which is 1,000, plus 0.05.10C, which is 0.005C. So C equals 10,000 plus 1,000 plus 0.005C.
Yep. So C equals 11,000 plus 0.005C.
Now get all the C terms together. Subtract what's 0.005C from both sides. 1C, 0.005C is 0.995C. So 0.995C equals 11,000.
Almost there. Now just solve for C.
C is 11,000.995, which comes out to roughly $11,055.03.
There you go. That's the true total cost of Service Center C. After accounting for the services it gets from D, notice it's higher than its original $10,000.
It is, because it reflects the support it received. Now we need D's true cost. We can plug this value of C back into D's equation, right? D equals 20,000 plus 0.10C.
Exactly. D, it's 20,000 plus 0.1055.3.
Okay, D's true cost is also higher than its original $20,000.
Okay.
So D equals 20,000 plus 11.53, which is $21,105.53. Well, let's round maybe to 21,100 adjusted costs. That's actually quite neat. No iterations, just solving the system.
Yeah.
So now we have the true costs. C, $11,055.23, D, $21,105.05, and E, $4,000. How do we do the final allocation to production A and B?
Now it's straightforward like the direct method, but using these adjusted service cost figures, we just applied the original usage percentages of production centers only.
Okay. So for production A, its total cost is its original $80,000 plus its share from C, 40% $11,055.03, plus its share from C, 40% $11,055.03, plus its share from E, 30% of $4,000.
Exactly. Let's calculate that. 40% of 155.3 is 422.1. 75% of 105.5 is $151 is $1,200.
Okay, so A is its original $100,000 plus 442.1, plus its share from D, 20% of $21,405.05, plus its share from D, 70% of $4,000.
Okay. 50% of 155.3 is 527.7. 20% of 21,125.5 is 4,221.1. 70% of 4,000 is 2,800.
So B equals 100,000 plus 527.7 plus 221.1 plus 2,800. That gives $112,548.08.
There we have it. The final allocated overheads using the algebraic reciprocal method.
And let's quickly compare. A is $101,451.02, and B is $112,548.08. How does that stack up against the repeated distribution result we had earlier? That was A, $101,453, and B, $112,547.
They're extremely close. As you'd expect, the small difference is likely just due to rounding in the repeated distribution steps versus the precise algebraic solution. It shows both methods aim for and achieve essentially the same result, a full reflection of those reciprocal services.
That's really cool to see how two different approaches, one iterative and one algebraic, arrive at pretty much the exact same answer. It builds confidence in the result.
It does. They're just different tools to get to that accurate, fully allocated overhead figure.
Fantastic. Okay, listener, hopefully you're following along. Let's try and put your understanding to the test now with a little mini challenge. Ready?
Let's do it. Imagine a slightly different company. It has two production cost centers, let's call them V and W, and two service cost centers, X and Y.
Okay, V, W, X, Y. What are their starting overheads?
Apportioned and allocated overheads are V has $6,000, W has $8,000, X has $4,000, and Y has $10,000.
Got it. V 6K, W 8K, X 4K, Y 10K. Total overhead $28,000. Now the crucial part, how are the services used?
Okay, listen carefully. Service X's services are used 60% by V, 30% by W, and 10% by Y.
X serves Y. Okay, what about Y?
Service Y services are used 80% by V and 20% by W. Notice Y does not serve X.
Right, so X serves Y, but Y does not serve X back. This isn't reciprocal. It sounds like a one-way street again.
It does indeed. So the question for you, listener, is how much would cost center V's total overhead cost be if this company used the step-down approach to reapportion the service cost? Think about the order.
Okay, take a moment to think that through. Step that approach. X serves Y, Y serves no one else, no other service centers. What's the final overhead for V?
All right, should we walk through the solution?
Let's do it. First step in the step-down method. Identify the order. X serves Y, one other service center. Y serves 0 other service centers. So who goes first?
X goes first, as it serves another service center.
Right. So we allocate X's $4,000 first. Where does it go? 60% to V, 30% to W, 10% to Y.
Okay, so V gets 60% of $4,000, which is $2,400.
W gets 30% of $4,000, which is $1,200.
And Y gets 10% of $4,000, which is $400.
Okay, X is now closed. Its $4,000 is distributed. Now we move to Y. What's Y's total cost to be allocated?
It's Y's original $10,000 plus the $400 it just received from X. So Y's new total cost is $10,400.
Makes sense. And this $10,400 is allocated based on Y's usage, 80% to V and 20% to W.
Correct. So V gets 80% of $10,400. What's that?
80% of $10,400 is $8,320.
Right. And W gets the remaining 20% of $10,400, which is $2,080.
So V started with $6,000. It received $2,400 from X in the first step, and it received $8,320 from Y in the second step.
Add those up. $6,000 plus $2,400 plus $8,320 equals $16,720.
$16,720 is the answer.
Nice. So if you, the listener, got $16,720, you nailed the step-down method for that scenario. Well done. Yeah, great job. It really highlights how those indirect costs from X and Y find their way accurately into V and W's totals, respecting that one-way dependency. And getting that right, as we said, is crucial for making good business decisions.
Absolutely. And there you have it. We've taken quite a journey, haven't we? Through the direct method, the step-down method, and then the two flavors of the reciprocal method, repeated distribution and algebraic.
We have. We've basically unpacked how businesses can and should precisely allocate those sometimes hidden indirect costs from service departments over to production.
It really is all about making sure every single dollar the company spends eventually finds its rightful home in the cost of the products or services being sold. No costs left behind, so to speak.
Exactly. And understanding these different methods, it's just fundamental to truly grasping what it costs to make something, which, as we've touched on, influences pretty much everything.
Yep, pricing strategies.
Investment decisions.
Yeah.
Knowing where you're actually making money.
It's all connected back to getting this allocation right. It's about ensuring every single part of a product's cost is accounted for, no matter how sort of indirect it might seem at first glance, giving you that clear financial lens.
It's a clear lens, well put.
So maybe a final thought to leave our listeners with. We've seen these different methods, ranging from simple to quite complex. How might the choice of which reapportionment method a company uses, maybe they opt for the simpler direct method versus the more complex algebraic one, even if reciprocal services exist, how might that choice subtly influence a company's strategic decisions down the line?
That's a fascinating question to ponder.
I mean, the overall total overhead cost for the company stays the same, regardless of the method, right? We saw that $214,000 kept reappearing. But if the allocation between products is skewed because you chose a simpler, less accurate method, could that lead a company to mistakenly push a product that looks really profitable on paper, but only because it's true? Full costs, including all that reciprocal support, are being understated by the accounting method chosen.
Absolutely. You could end up investing heavily in product A because the direct method makes it look cheap to produce while product B looks expensive.
Right.
But if you use the reciprocal method, maybe product A actually relies heavily on that interdepartmental support and its true cost is much higher. You might be chasing fool's gold, strategically speaking.
Yeah, it's like the accounting method itself, the choice of technique, could create blind spots that impact major business choices, even if the grand total adds up correctly. A really interesting ripple effect to think about, isn't it?
It really is. It underlines why understanding the nuances of these methods isn't just for the accountants. It has real strategic implications.